What's up everybody, Brian Tong here, and this is my in-depth Mac Studio M1 Ultra review 1 month after its release. And I'm actually happy that I'm doing this review right now because there are so many things that have changed just 1 month later with optimization that have made this Mac Studio significantly better than it was just a month ago. So for all you that instantly jumped on the Mac Studio isn't pro bandwagon, y'all look silly. Now, I also wanted to approach this differently from not only my perspective as a video content creator, but by talking to other professionals. So my buddy, Andy Park, who is the director of visual development for Marvel Studios and is responsible for the character concepts and art direction for the MCU, he's gonna be checking out this Mac Studio with me. And then also my friend Shaun, a motion graphics designer, is also gonna be sharing his thoughts on the studio and the performance that just took a huge leap with a new improvement to After Effects. So first, let's talk about the Mac Studio. And of course, it is made to pair with a studio display, but I'm gonna get into that display another time. This is all about the Mac Studio, and this is Apple's most powerful machine right now. And the design, it is pretty much what you'd expect, a Mac Mini thick with a whole lot of C's. It's made from a single piece of aluminum, and it's a no-frills block of metal that measures 7.7 by 7.7 inches, and it's 3.7 inches tall. I do really appreciate how it pays homage to the original Apple G4 Cube, and when I did my initial unboxing, the actual footprint of the new Mac Studio is almost exactly the same as the Cube. To me, this is really the G4 Cube fully realized now almost 22 years later, and I have a kind of a fond place for that machine in my heart. Now this Mac Studio, this is packed with Apple's groundbreaking M1 Ultra, so that is 2 M1 Max chips combined together and appearing as one single chip with a 20-core CPU and 64-core GPU with 128 gigs of unified memory and 2 terabytes of storage. This is also a beefier machine here at 7.9 pounds. I mean, kind of makes my muscles pop. It weighs 2 pounds heavier compared to the M1 Max version at 5.9 pounds because it has a larger thermal copper module that is heavier for the M1 Ultra versus the lighter aluminum heatsink in the M1 Max version of this model. Now the engineering and internal design of this, it is just damn impressive. I've put this through a lot and I still haven't heard its fans rev up. This is compact, it's portable, it's powerful and quiet. I mean, you really can't ask for anything more. Now the Mac Studio has the most ports out of any current Mac that's part of the M1 family. If you look over here on the back, you're gonna have your 4 USB-C Thunderbolt 4 ports with data transfers up to 40 gigabits per second and DisplayPort capability. You have the 10 gigabit Ethernet. You also have the power cable connection, which it looks like a hidden Mickey because someone says that in my videos every time in the comments. Like, we get it, it's a hidden Mickey. Now the 2 USB-A ports, they're here. There's also a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, and then you have the HDMI port. Now the Mac Studio supports up to 5 displays total, 4 displays with up to 6K resolution at 60 Hertz, and then 1 HDMI display with a 4K resolution connected to this HDMI port. Now I wanna let you know it's an HDMI 2.0 port and not HDMI 2.1. So it does not support high resolutions or a 120 Hertz refresh rate, just 4K at 60 frames per second. There's also no variable refresh rate. There's no dynamic HDR. So sorry gamers, but this machine, it ain't about that life. That's not what the Mac Studio is really made for. Now on the front side here, you also have 2 more Thunderbolt 4 ports with 40 gigabit data transfer speeds on the M1 Ultra version. If you're getting an M1 Max version, they're gonna be USB-C ports with up to 10 gigabits per second data transfer. And then my favorite part for my workflow, you gotta love the SDXC card slot. And I love the ports on the front here. I've talked about this recently, but it's a sign of how, to me, this is a slightly different and evolved Apple that is shifted, leaning a little more towards function over form now, especially for their pro customers. And it's not that they don't care about the design of their products, but we are seeing this new Apple give more thought to function more than ever. And the Mac Studio, this is another example of that, because when was the last time that we saw ports directly placed on the front of any product from Apple? I mean, it's really been a while. Now you've also got Wi-Fi 6 here, not Wi-Fi 6E. There's Bluetooth 5.0, not Bluetooth 5.1. And those aren't deal breakers, but it would have been nice to have some of those longer term features, kind of future-proof it in place just like HDMI 2.1 would have been real nice in here as well. This is a powerful machine from Apple, packed into this incredible feat of engineering in a package that is compact and has power like no other Mac before it. You know, we've seen the benchmarks, and I'll go over my benchmark findings quickly because what's really important here is the real world use and results. So let's just show you how things have advanced with Apple Silicon in just 2 years. So we're running the Geekbench 5 benchmark test. I'm gonna take the new highest end Mac Studio right here, and we're gonna compare it as far back as the Intel Core i9 16-inch MacBook Pro that had 64 gigs of RAM, and I still own that from the late 2019. We also have the 24-inch M1 iMac with 16 gigs of unified memory, the 16-inch M1 Max MacBook Pro with 64 gigs of memory, and the M1 Ultra Mac Studio with 128 gigs of memory. So here are their single core scores, and once you hit the M1, they're all pretty much in the same ballpark in that mid to high 1700 score. That's no surprise. And then when we look at the multi-core score performance, we can see how it keeps getting better, and it takes a big jump with the M1 Ultra on the Mac Studio, pretty much doubling the M1 Max. It has double the CPU cores from 10 to 20, so that lines up. Now for GPU performance and comparing metal scores, you can see the improvement again, but you don't see nearly as big of a jump from the M1 Max to the M1 Ultra. The other thing here to note is that Apple, they did show a graphic that claimed that it outperformed NVIDIA's RTX 3090 graphics card during their M1 Ultra reveal, but that was only when comparing the performance output based on a specific amount of power it was using. Now we know part of Apple's secret sauce is their efficiency and output at lower wattage, but come on, for a PC desktop powerhouse that is unleashed with fans blazing, like they don't care about that stuff at all. Now in benchmarks, the Mac Studio M1 Ultra was absolutely destroyed in the Geekbench 5 benchmark with less than half the score of NVIDIA's RTX 3090. So yes, fully powered, it doesn't come close. But those are all references of just how powerful these machines are on paper, especially when we look at the Mac evolution overall. But let's do some real world tests here, because this machine is really made for content creators, digital artists, motion graphic designers, 3D designers, and audio production. This is targeting kind of a smaller segment of users, quite honestly, and recent software updates, specifically from Adobe and Apple that just dropped, have made this Mac Studio even more beast than it was just a month ago. So let's start with me as a video editor. I was blown away by the export times that I got from my M1 Max review. That was last year, but it makes me wonder, okay, well, what will I see from the M1 chip to the M1 Max and now to the M1 Ultra? So using the latest version of Adobe Premiere on a 13.5-minute project, it has 5 video and 5 audio tracks. My M1 Max 16-inch MacBook Pro exported the project in 4 minutes and 27 seconds, and I did that multiple times. I put the same project on this Mac Studio M1 Ultra, and it had the same export times of 4 minutes and 27 seconds multiple times. And I was surprised. I was honestly a little disappointed because there was no real difference. I'm still impressed that you can render out a 13.5-minute video project in under 5 minutes. That's still crazy, but I couldn't help but feel a little underwhelmed at first. So then I decided to throw something bigger at it. So I have a 45-minute project with about 20 video tracks, 20 audio tracks. It was my iPad Air interview, and we really get to see a difference here. The M1 Max MacBook Pro finished the export in 23 minutes and 39 seconds. Also, its fans really kicked in and started making an audible noise about halfway in. Compare that to the M1 Ultra Mac Studio that exported the video in 15 minutes and 44 seconds, and the fans stayed quiet the entire time, and it never revved up. So that's an 8-minute difference, which is cutting about a third of the export time with the type of performance that I was expecting to see from this Mac Studio. So yeah, very nice. Now, as a video editor, the M1 Ultra will make a difference in exports for longer and more involved projects based on my tests, but most of the Premiere projects I work with will probably stay about the same. The fan will stay quiet, and the thing that you don't see here is that Adobe Premiere ran even smoother on the M1 Ultra. So there are times when I'm working with a lot of layers where I press play just to kind of preview sections, and I'm jumping around and playing different parts of the video while I'm still editing. Sometimes I can't stop it immediately. Like, it actually just keeps playing for about 5, 7, 8 seconds, and it's as if like I can't control Premiere for those moments, and it can be annoying. It doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. Now, someone right now is screaming at their display and saying to me, use Final Cut Pro, it's optimized for the Mac. Well, honestly, I'm still a Premiere guy. You go with what you know for now. With the Mac Studio, none of that lag happened. It just enhanced my overall editing experience. So the M1 Ultra made Premiere run even better. But let's talk about Final Cut Pro's exports, right? Apple just released a software update that brings optimizations for playback and graphics performance to the M1 Max and M1 Ultra Mac Studio specifically. So I made a project, and sure, it's not the most complex, but it's 4 video tracks, 3 audio tracks, and it's about 15.5 minutes, and I exported it in ProRes 422 HQ. The M1 Max exported that sucker in 1 minute and 33 seconds. Dear Lord. So then, hey, Mr. M1 Ultra Mac Studio, he's like, I'm gonna just brush my shoulder off, came through like a boss and exported that project in 47 seconds. Are you serious? So maybe I should switch over to Final Cut Pro like immediately for reals. I'm gonna look into that because that is just damn impressive. And with real-time rendering in the background and the optimization of software and hardware, whew, sheesh. That is insane. So that's my experience with the Mac Studio with video editing. Now let's bring in my friend Shaun who creates motion graphics.
So my profession is motion graphics. So you can kind of think of that as like, graphic design, but then taking that and animating, it can lean into like visual effects and compositing. So yeah, definitely like my main program is After Effects and Premiere in the Creative Suite.
So doing this review couldn't have been timed any more perfectly. Adobe just released an update for Adobe After Effects, specifically optimized for Apple M1 Max, which claims to bring up to 3 times faster performance. So here's what we found. So you know what, we compared your machine, which I have the specs here. This is a 2019, the powerhouse at the time, the cheese grater, right?
Right.
It's a 2019, 3.2 gigahertz, 16 core CPU, Intel Xeon, 512 gigs of RAM. This is no slouch. This is still technically no slouch, right?
Yeah, I still call it a beast,
It is a beast.
Yeah.
We wanted to kind of give a reference point of that's the machine you're working on. We also compared it to, we rendered out like a 15-second project on After Effects. We put it also on an M1 Max MacBook Pro and a Mac Studio with the M1 Ultra. And so first of all, Shaun, you sent me this project because you helped me out with this. Can you maybe tell people what you were trying to find in this project to at least, try and test this a little, or give these processors a challenge instead of just being, here's some quick little 5-second file. Is there anything specific to it or not?
Like I would say it's a pretty typical file, as far as like, how many layers there are, how many effect layers are, with like the blurs, working in sort of like the Z space or the 3D space. That's where a lot of the CPU crunch comes in. So, yeah, I thought it was a good test. There are definitely like projects that are like way heavier and way more intense, but for demo purposes, I think this was a good crunch for them.
Now we ran the test on your machine. We chose 32-bit color, ProRes 422 HQ. What was the final export time, at least for your machine?
First time I rendered, I think it was like 10 minutes, about 2 seconds. So yeah, low tens. And especially if you go back in and rework the file, sometimes you can re-render with cache. I mean, that dropped down to like maybe 930, but yeah, it was still up there. Yeah.
Yeah, we made sure to clean out the memory and the cache before it, just to kind of give at least an optimal kind of like as similar experience. Now, if I look at where the file that I have here, we then ran the same export on After Effects on my M1 Max MacBook Pro, and that exported out in, I did it twice just to make sure, 6 minutes and 48 seconds, 6 minutes and 53 seconds. Okay. And Shaun's already like, yo, that's an M1 Max. Yeah, tell me more. We then updated the software, ran the optimization. Then after we ran the export, I did it twice. The times that I came out with, 4 minutes and 12 seconds, 4 minutes and 9 seconds.
Yes. That's what I want to hear. Yeah, for me, it's all about the render times. That's my life right there. That's like, trying to figure out what, how much time you need to put into each round that you do, like, you know, setting expectations for clients. So like those numbers, like, seconds are, come down to like a big deal in your life.
So with just a software update on the M1 Ultra for After Effects, it cut the export time down by more than a half, from 8 minutes and 43 seconds to just over 4 minutes. That is freaking stupid insane. And this is performance that didn't exist just a month ago. It was software. It's incredible. So then I wanted to bring in another friend, Andy Park from Marvel Studios, and he primarily uses Photoshop for his work, so he came over to check out the new Mac Studio. I figured let's get some more real world experience from someone in a completely different area. Good friend, been here on the channel, Andy Park. Thanks for coming out, bro.
What's up? Thanks for having me. I'm the director of visual development at Marvel Studios, as you know. Ooh. So basically, we're designing the characters, a lot of the costumes. If they're CG characters, we'll design the characters that you see in the MCU. So
because you're dealing practically with digital art specifically, I figured, hey, let's get you in front of the Mac Studio. You've never used it before, right?
Nope.
And see pretty much if you can feel any difference in your workflow, whether it happens or not. I know you brought some files here for us to check out, which I'm excited about.
Yeah. Again, thanks for having me.
Yes.
I'm excited because I'm in the market. My computer that I've been working on for the past many years is a 2013 iMac.
Ooh, okay.
So it's about time. So when I saw the Apple event, I did call you up or texted you.
I'm gonna let you kind of do what you normally do.
Yeah, but let's see. So I'm just gonna be opening up a couple files. I brought some stuff here.
And can you tell about these files? Like, what are you typically? Your files are probably larger than most people than mine. So what are you looking for here when we open these up?
I'm looking at speed, right? So usually the files that I work when I'm designing a character, usually they're only like 500 megabytes. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times we'll also be doing like marketing images, so book covers, posters for like Comic-Con or D23. So that's the kind of stuff I wanted to bring more heavy duty, like at least a gig. And then sometimes it even goes to 2 gigs.
Cool.
And that's when I notice, when I open it up in Photoshop or press save, that it takes like, sometimes up to 40 seconds.
Okay.
So for this, I want to see if I notice a difference, if it's just going to open up the same amount of time.
I hope so.
Or if it's going to be faster. So
okay.
We haven't opened up Photoshop yet.
Nope, we have not.
I'm opening it up now. We're watching it in real time. So
these are on the drive.
Here we go. There's Photoshop.
Okay.
All right. It's a large file. This is 1.2 gigabytes, I think. And that was pretty fast. That was only like 10 seconds?
That was less. I feel like that was like
seconds?
6 or 7 seconds.
Ooh.
Is that typically, do you remember this file? How long does it typically take?
This one, because it's I think 1.2 gigs would take about almost 20, 30
really?
seconds. So that was fast. So these are, heavy duty, tons of layers. Normally when I'm designing a character, usually it can go up to like 100 or even more. It's mainly because of the amount of options, So for any given character, I had to do like hundreds of different options, from different helmets to different costume designs. For a book cover, there's so many different elements. This one has, as you can see, like over 300 layers. There's all these different options. As I do on layers, you can see the effects coming off. This is like the effects layer, that kind of thing. So as I take off, you can see the iterations of, there goes Anthony. Right? This is like early on, fairly early on, what it looks like. And then, oops, that's really early on. And then going back to the original, where's the history? Going back to the view, and that's the final.
Dang.
So these ones are like, this is like at 100%, the file's quite large because the amount of detail I gotta have to put into a file like this, and how many different elements.
Is this like a blur effect on the wings?
Yes.
Right?
Yes, so definitely that's one effect where I'll paint that and then use the filters, blur effect, just a lot of painting.
How long would you roughly guess an image like this took you roughly? I mean, it's kind of hard to say, but.
Yeah. I think normally when we do character designs, that the initial painting takes like a day to 2 days. And then from there, we can spend day after day doing iterations. For a book cover like this, these usually take like a week to even sometimes 2 weeks, depending on, but you're also juggling other things. But these are more like, movie posters, that kind of in that realm. So it takes a long time just trying to get every element.
In that quantum realm?
In that quantum realm.
Nerd alert!
Quantum mania.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay, this is great. So were you actually pretty surprised about that first one?
That was really fast.
Really? Okay, that's good to hear.
Do you want to check out the 2 GB one?
Yes, I do. So
yes.
Let's go. Yeah. Let's
go
see
back
what we got here. Okay.
So this one that I'm going to open up is just the 2 gig. No, that's not it. So this is the cover that I did for the Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Okay.
After spending months and months designing with a team of artists, then I did this cover for the art of book.
So we're gonna have a little timer here on the side, but this definitely feels like still under 10 seconds.
That was probably under 10 seconds, and that was 2.5?
2.5 gigs.
What I said? Yeah. So this is even more heavy duty.
Is that kind of exciting for you, honestly, as an artist?
That is quite exciting. Yeah, that was fast. So tempting, man.
For Andy, his files open up significantly faster, but actually using Photoshop, he's been able to work on files with hundreds of layers and effects just fine on a 2013 machine. We got his tablet to work to some degree, but not the level with the same features, functionality, and responsiveness that he's used to. We didn't know that was gonna happen, but that's the reality for a lot of users. It's great to have the fastest machine, but every user has to figure out, does it work with what I have right now, or do I need to upgrade my peripherals just to use it with this new hardware? So I think the big question, Shaun and Andy, are they gonna make the jump to the new Mac Studio? Are you kind of waiting to see how the landscape is before you like kind of jump on a machine?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna wait for now. I would, I do prefer sometimes the modular options that you have with like the Mac Pros. Being able to swap in PCI cards, expandability with SSDs.
The speed of it, even though we can't do an extensive test, especially with the 3D and really painting and all that kind of stuff, was very impressive. And that's why the stuff that I brought was more the heavy duty, larger files, and that how fast they open up, they're very responsive. I'm very, very tempted, and I'm probably gonna buy it.
So, I wanted to give you a little different perspective from legit creative professionals and the reactions to the Mac Studio along with mine, just to show it, how it may or may not make a difference with some of these different workflows. Mama, I'm gonna tell you right now, if you're watching, I would not recommend that you get a Mac Studio. Do not do it unless you really want one. And I'm not gonna stop anyone from getting what they want. But the price of this Mac Studio right here, this is $6,199 before getting AppleCare or adding sales tax to it. Again, this is the M1 Ultra 20-core CPU, 64 GPU with the max 128 gigs of unified memory and a 2 terabyte SSD storage. If you want to max out the storage to 8 terabytes, you're looking at $7,999 before getting AppleCare or adding sales tax to it. The M1 Max version starts at $1,999, which quite honestly is more than enough machine for most people. And then the machine that starts with the M1 Ultra, that starts at $3,999. But this Mac Studio, this is truly an impressive machine. It's a groundbreaking technological achievement in computing from Apple. You're combining two M1 Max chips together to create the M1 Ultra and having them be seen by the OS as one single CPU and GPU. It is spectacular. Now, we were floored by its performance when it came out, but again, we're doing this review 1 month later, and it got even better just 1 month later with software updates that completely unleash this beast. The Mac Studio is just so good that it also, it makes me wonder what the next gen Mac Pro will be like. I mean, that's the Pro machine that I'm also waiting to see before making my final purchasing decision this year. It's a big investment, and it's just the smart thing to do, even if this really has everything that I need in a compact size. The Mac Studio is Apple's most impressive piece of Mac hardware, and for a content creator like me, this isn't anything close to a bad Apple. This thing is a badass Apple.